Hello everyone, I'm Jeff Stanley with Stanley Handcrafted, and today we're going to be talking about adding your oils at manufacturer's suggested temperatures. Now this has been a topic in the boards for a long time, and it just recently came back up in the last couple days, so I kind of wanted to touch on it, especially with some of the videos that I've put out talking about different temperatures, from high temperatures to low temperature methods. I wanted to basically go through and give a kind of a visual representation or a visual demonstration on why manufacturers suggest high temperatures. So that's basically what this one is going to be. I've got out the chalkboard again. I'm going to go through because a lot of people like the last couple that I did on the chalkboard. I think there's a lot of people out there that learn from visual. There's a ton of people out there that learn from just reading. There's a lot of terminology that goes into this one that I'm not going to be using in this video, just because I'm going to try to keep this one as basic as possible just to get the point across. And basically what this video is going to do is just show you, kind of give you a good representation or a good visual idea of why adding your oils at a higher temperature is basically the best common practice when you're starting out. And what I was going to go into today was basically why manufacturers suggest adding oils at higher temperatures. Now again, this isn't going to be like a scientific explanation or anything like that. There are lots of terms out there that would clear this up for the people that basically learn that way. And I think the visual demonstration on this one is going to help a lot of people, just as much as the other way. Okay, so if we're looking at a wax block, you basically get it in a block form. And again, this isn't going to be scientific or anything like this. Or you get your wax in block form, so it's just a giant block like this. And of course, as you start heating that down, that wax starts to go from a solidified form into a liquid form. So basically, we're going to think of it as, like, as you go from heating it up from 10 degrees, 20 degrees, it's going to start to split apart a little bit. So that wax, of course, and this is going to be very basic to a lot of people, that wax is going to start to melt down. It's going to start to split apart. It's going to go from one block. And again, this is just for visual purposes. It's going to go from one block down into 2, 4, and it's going to start to really split up. So basically what's going to happen is that wax is going to go from a solidified form, and it's going to open up and basically open up to individual molecules rather than one block form. So essentially what we're going to end up with is your wax. Okay, so let's go ahead and call this 180 degrees. This is basically your wax broken down into 180 degrees. It's completely melted, 180, 190, whatever you want to call it. This is the wax fully melted, fully opened up into individual molecules. And the reason why adding your oils at high temps is suggested by the manufacturers is just because it binds so much easier. So the oil, and I'm going to use the blue for the oil, when you add your oils, which is already a liquid, to this, it basically goes in and it matches molecule to molecule. Now, I don't know that I added the exact same circles right there, but it really doesn't matter with this one. The point is, when you add your oils to wax at 180 degrees or whatever the temperature is where the wax is fully opened up, they match 1-to-1 basically. So when you go to mix those, it's incredibly easy, and basically it's a lot easier for the oil and the wax to combine without much effort. And that's exactly why they tell you to do it at high temperatures, because it just blends so much easier. Now, what happens is you can go down a little bit. A lot of manufacturers will suggest adding your oils from 180 to 170. So again, let's call this 180 right here. So if you add your wax, melt your wax down to 180, and you add your oils at 180, it's going to match up 1-to-1. Now again, this is incredibly basic, but I think this type of demonstration speaks to a lot of people. So as you go down from 180, now when you're talking about something like 6006, the wax starts to cool a lot faster than other waxes. So if this is 180, let's call this 170. So what ends up happening as your wax starts to cool, the oil is still broken down to individual molecules, whereas the wax is starting to melt and it's starting to combine again. So what ends up happening is your oil to wax. So the oil mixing with the wax is going to be a little bit more difficult. And again, this is very basic, but you've got a lot more oil. The wax is starting to combine. It's starting to solidify again. So adding your oils at lower temperatures, you can still get it to go, but you're going to have to work a lot harder to get those, basically to get the 2 oil to mix with the 1 wax. Now to get this to happen, you're going to be stirring a lot more, and there is room for error. And then of course, as we break it down even more, let's call this 160 with 6006, because 160 is the point where it gets extremely difficult. So that oil has to combine with wax that's a little bit more solidified. And this is where you're going to get into issues where unless you stir really hard for a long time, that oil probably isn't going to mix, and you're going to get a lot more misses in here. So these oil molecules, once the oil and the wax combine, this oil here is basically just going to get left over, and it's going to sweat and it's going to bead at the top of your candle. So it's basically not going to bind to this wax right here, and it's going to end up in seepage. And I will say, when we're talking about 464, even when you get down to lower temperatures, let's call this 180 right here, your oil is still going to match all the way at the top. And then as you start to go down, even at like 150, 140, the 464 is definitely opened up a little bit more. So with 464, the reason why adding it at a little bit lower temperatures isn't as bad as some of the other waxes, and it's definitely still recommended because you are going to get some missed oil in this one unless you stir really well. Now when you start to get down to too low temperatures, like I said, you're going to get some oil. You can see these right here. These are ones that represent mixing well, and these are ones that don't mix well. Now, with something like 464, it's a little bit easier to get this kind of thing right here. 6006 doesn't work as well because once you add the oil to 6006, anywhere from like 165 and under, the wax itself starts to solidify extremely fast. It will drop down a few degrees and it will start to get thicker a lot faster. With 464, it's a little bit slower. So if you do add your oils a little bit lower, you definitely have to stir the wax a little bit more. And when you're stirring that wax, you're going to have to work a little bit harder to kind of split those wax molecules back up so that these will hopefully potentially catch. All right, so that's it. I hope that made sense. Like I said, this is extremely basic. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into this. Like I said, there's a lot of terminology that could explain this in a second, in a single paragraph. But for the people that learn visually, this is exactly why I wanted to do this one. And I definitely wanted to point out why it's important to listen to the manufacturer's suggested temperatures. A lot of the websites out there will tell you exactly how to use their waxes. Nature's Garden with their Joy Wax is a prime example. A lot of the other places like Candle Science, Lone Star, they sell other manufacturers' waxes like the IGI. And of course, they list all their specs in their tech sheets when they send that stuff out. And they recommend the same thing. The biggest reason that they suggest those temperatures is because there's a lot less room for error with those. Like I said, as you start to go down in temperatures, there's some room for error with some of these waxes, 464 being one of those, just because it takes so long to cool from 180 down to 110. Right around 105 is when it starts to go to a little bit more of a milky form. You can see that it's starting to solidify, getting more of like a thicker oil or a syrup kind of consistency. So with 464, if you mess up and you don't get your oils at 180, you've got a little room to kind of play with that one. If you add it at 170, you're not going to be in big trouble. Whereas other waxes like 4627, that's a wax that you definitely cannot add any lower than the manufacturer's suggested temperatures, which I believe on that one is around 185 to 180. I did a test on that one. I added it probably a little bit closer to 165, and as soon as I put the oil in, it just clumped right in the middle. So that is a wax that you definitely don't have room for error. And that's exactly why these manufacturers suggest that you add it at the higher temperatures, just because there's far less room for error. If you add your oil to wax at 185 to 180, it's basically going to mix on its own. Obviously, you still want to get in there with the spoon. You still want to mix it up and get everything to bind extremely well, basically 1-to-1 like I was showing you in the video. And then you're still going to get a nice candle. And then of course, as you go down in the temperatures, specifically 464, just again because it's got such a wide range from cooling times from 180 to 110, as you start to go down that one, it still binds well, or it still binds, but you're definitely going to have to work a little bit harder to get it to bind more like the 1-to-1. Now, as you've seen in a lot of my videos, I definitely am a fan of the lower temp method. It's not a recommended method, and it's not one that you want to jump right into at the beginning stages, just because there is a lot of room for error in that one. And the biggest reason there's a lot more room for error with that one is just because you have to stir a lot more, you have to know the wax. It's definitely something that you want to be kind of conscious of when you're getting the wax down that low. The wax starts to solidify, and if you don't know what your waxes do or how they perform or what they look like at different temperatures, you can definitely mess that one up. So again, like I said, this was a very basic video, but I know there's a lot of comments out there. There's a lot of thoughts on this one. So if I glossed over something, which I absolutely did in this one, please let me know in the comments down below. I'll try to go through and answer every single one of them. If there's another wax that you'd like to see, kind of a demo with this one, or if you want to see a full demo of adding oils to waxes, the 6006, the 4627, and the 464 Joy Wax, anything like that, if you want to see a video of those, adding at 180, 185, and adding at 160 or 120, please let me know, and I can definitely make a video showing that and showing the differences between adding at those temperatures. And of course, you can follow me on any of the social media platforms listed down below: Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, the website. My email address is there if you want to reach out, please do. And if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and thank you for watching.